Yo, everybody. Welcome to Off Panel, a weekly interview podcast about all things comics brought to you by Sketch.com. I'm your host, David Harper, and this week's guest is the writer and occasional artist of Alien over at Marvel, the co-writer and occasional artist of Time Before Time at Image, the writer, artist, and colorist of Old Dog at Image, a rather busy cover artist, and the person currently running a Kickstarter for the process book of Old Dog. It's Declan Shalvey. Thanks for coming on, Declan.
Thanks, man. Wow, I really do seem like I'm pretty busy going by that.
I think I missed stuff too, right? There's like some varying projects and things like that in your newsletter.
Yeah, I've got a short story, Crypto Shadows at Marvel, and just various. I just seem to I'd have like various covers darting around at the moment, so even I'm having a hard time keeping track, to be honest.
You just hit number 250 for your Marvel covers too.
Yeah. I mean, that's just purely me keeping track. I think like maybe 2 years ago, I'm like, how many? Because getting on covers at Marvel was like a big task once upon a time, and I just started cataloging them. No other covers, just Marvel, because at least they were easier to keep track of. And I don't think the book's announced yet, but it's an issue 1 variant, an X book, and I was like, there's 250 covers. Bloody hell! Like it's crazy. Like considering I couldn't get one for a long time.
I mean, as a person who grew up thinking that every single thing that was 25, 50, 75, or 100 deserves some sort of special cover, I'm glad that you're keeping track of those things, because I don't know. There's something special in numbers. That's a big milestone. You reached a big number. It's
just a personal thing. When I won the 200th cover I did was for US Agent, and I wrote in 200 under my signature. So I did it for this too. I'm going to do that every 50 covers, I think, assuming I get 50 more covers, over time.
I assume that if there's a foil variant, it will be to celebrate your 250th cover, not whatever the comic is.
Yeah, that would be sweet.
You know how it was in the 90s. Everything had a hologram, acetate, hollow foil, whatever hollow foil was.
Yeah, X-Men 25 and Wolverine 75 had that like hologram strip.
Yeah, Fatal Attractions.
No, it had the strip with like, it had a hologram on the cover too. Good times, man.
Yeah. It is funny how, like, if there was a comic with a hologram that came out at some point where it was just like a card on the cover like that, I think I'd probably just buy it because I love the Fatal Attraction stuff so much. It just hits me in the right place.
Yeah, me too. Even I remember when there was a while there where Image were doing for like new series, the issue 1, they do a kind of it wasn't a foil, but like it was they do it on top of the regular cover, but it was like like had a sheen to it. I think it was like exclusive retailers or something like that, but you'd get a comp of them. I remember I was working on a book where one of them had it, and I'm like, oh, this is so cool.
Yeah.
Like it just gets to the gutter fan of you, the baseline, like, oh, cool, things are cool.
I did want to ask about all the different roles, though, because it is funny. Like pretty much everything you're working on, you're writing and you're drawing to some sort of degree. Crypt of Shadows sounds like it's that's more writing, right?
That's story. Yeah, Alex Leeds was the artist on that.
Okay, so you have a lot of different roles, a lot of different hats, and I'm curious, do you feel like that has changed your perspective about the world of comics over the past few years as you've kind of done more of a number of different roles, even coloring on Old Dog? Or is it no big deal because it's comprised of a bunch of roles you already did, even if you didn't normally have them all mixed together like this?
Well, it's really helped me kind of hone my own career in a way, in which, if you're I don't know what the term is, but like gun for hire on various books, it was one thing that, like when I talked about art cred and stuff like that, it was really hard to kind of build your own, for lack of a better phrase, brand, but like take kind of more control over the kind of work that you're doing. And I'm doing less issues as an artist, but I'm creating more work that I'm like happy to be on. So there was a time where like if Marvel or DC announced some book, I would have been like, oh man, I'd have loved to have done that. Oh God, but you're working on whatever book. So many of the things I'm working on are things I would like to do. And it's not in the context necessarily as an artist. Sometimes it is, sometimes as a cover artist, sometimes I'm writing it. Like that's really cool. I get to kind of do more of the things I'd like to do rather than more of the things that I would like be, content to work on. It's given me more authorship across the board, both in what I choose to do and like what the content of it is, like what, even if it's been colored or drawn or whatnot. Like I think it means I'm very satisfied creatively.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we've talked about this before, but there's only so many things you can draw. You can't draw 8 books a month. You can't even draw 2 books a month.
Can't even draw 1 book a month, to be honest. Not anymore.
if you think about it, though, it's like writing allows a creative person, you're not just an artist, you do a lot of different things. It allows a creative person to get more of their ideas out there and take on more of the things that they wanted to do. Like, you get to write and draw an X-Men story. You get to write an Alien series. You get to write varying other things. And it's interesting because you wouldn't normally think about that. It's like, oh, it's just more jobs. But at the same time, it's also you kind of getting to embrace more sides of yourself and more things you're excited about.
Yeah, no, like the difference is, say, if I took all the energy, creative energy of everything I'm working on and I cut it to just drawing, I could probably get, 10, 12 issues of drawing of a book like I was like earlier in my Marvel career. Now my output is less in that way, but it's spread across so many different things. Like, would it be cool to draw Alien? Yeah, that'd be cool to draw Alien. But like with me writing Alien and seeing how much work Andrea's putting in, I'm like, oh man, I don't want to draw all that.
But you are drawing that. Aren't you was it part of the annual you're drawing?
No, I'm drawing. So for the new series, Descendants, there's a flashback story for a character, and I'm drawing that. So it'll be about a quarter of the book. It was originally because just schedule wise, so to keep Andrea on, because we loved what he did on Thaw and wanted to keep working with him. So as a way to kind of make sure we could do that, we needed a kind of somebody to come in and draw something. And I had an idea for a backstory for one character, and that way I was like, well, I can draw it. Like I said, it'll only be 25 pages total in the scheme of the whole arc. But like at the same time, I'm writing it on a mining colony, and like I wanted to draw rocks, so it's on a mining colony. Like I can cheat a little bit, and like I could just write in the stuff that I really want to draw, whereas Andrea could do all the really hard stuff. that's how it works.
You wanting to draw rocks it's fortunate because the Alien franchise has a deep history of mining franchises.
Exactly. Yeah. And grizzled looking people. But I could not be the person who writes and draws Alien. Like I'd love, that would be a really cool project. But this way I get to have the ideas, and also, I love working with other artists, like I said, Andrea's doing all the hard stuff, but like there's lots of technical stuff he's doing. I'm like, man, it's forcing me to kind of go, I need to do better at this. There's something it's healthy to kind of see that you're like, man, I got to do better at this type of stuff. But the case in point, like, if I was going to do that, that would be me dedicating 2 years to just working on, say, a licensed project, which is really, really cool. But like, I would never get to do creator own stuff. I wouldn't have the time. So I just have the best of all worlds now between working on, say, licensed stuff that's fun to do and get paid for, and also, pay people to work with me and do creative stuff that's, I just feel like I don't get frustrated with the work for hire stuff, because if there's a problem, then I have like all this space to do whatever I want on creator own stuff. And the creator own stuff, which can be really a lot of mental work to keep going, sometimes you can just kind of switch that off and just work on Aliens exists. You don't need to create everything for those kind of properties. The universes already exist, and you get to just play in them. So
I do think it's interesting because it's like the things we're talking about, what goes into a project, what goes into each of these roles, all these variant things. That is fundamentally why you're doing your current Kickstarter for Old Dog Dossier, the process book that takes people behind the scenes of how your Spy-Fi series over at Image comes together, with a particular focus on issue number 1. And it is interesting to think about that project through the prism of just kind of how you look at your own work and how you look at work in general. You've always been a very process-oriented person, someone who's very curious, at least as far as I know you. Maybe that only became an interest once we started talking. I have no idea. But it does seem like this, in the Time Before Time process book you did before for your other Image series, is really you kind of embracing the side of you that's really interested in getting in the weeds and kind of digging into how these things really happen.
Well, one excellent segue, by the way. And two, I only became interested in process stuff once I realized I could make a book of it. I've always, I remember like all of my days of comics back in the early days, director's commentaries on DVDs were a huge thing.
They still are?
Do they still do them?
Yeah.
I don't get DVDs anymore. So
I got back into buying Blu-rays because I was tired of streaming services taking my favorite movies off. And I was like, screw you, I'm just going to own it already. And so, yeah, like a lot of the new ones do still have commentaries.
Oh man, I gotta figure out a way to listen to that stuff. But I adored that stuff, and I love those Modern Masters book that was it Two Morrows used to do, like where they really like interviewed the artist and you learn more about them. I just love all that stuff. And I know over the years, whenever I've posted process stuff, people seem to really respond to it. I knew when we were doing Time Before Time, Old Dog was an idea I had that I knew I was going to do it, and I figured Time Before Time it would be a low risk way to test the waters to see if there would be an audience who'd be interested. It wasn't my work. It was, I was writing, but it was talking about to Rory, the co-creator and writer, and Joe Palmer, who's very distinctive work, and I just thought his stuff was so kind of interesting to look at. So it was kind of me dipping my toe in the water of like one, crowdsourcing, two, do like not doing like a narrative project, but like a book that really kind of looked into the process, and three, finding out if anybody was remotely interested, and it did well. So I was really happy with it. So I always knew that I would do it for Old Dog at some stage. It would just have to wait until the first trade was finished, just for story reasons and things like that that I'd like to talk about. But look, it's just another experiment of seeing if it works. Like I would say, like it seems to be doing okay. It hasn't reached its target yet, but I don't know, man. I guess it's just like blabbing about what I'm doing and working on, and I like showing the layouts and the sketches. And I guess I don't know if every creator would necessarily be able to do this. It's just that over the years I have noticed anytime I post process stuff, people seem to like really respond to it. I don't know why. I don't know if it's me or just the people who've like my stuff over the years, but I know that I personally really like it. So yeah, I just wanted to play around with it.
I think it's a combination of the fact that you offer it and the fact that there's a lot of people who are specifically interested in it. I think there's some people who are interested in it because they want to be creators themselves. And then there's other people like me who are just like really interested in how the sausage is made. And so getting in there, I should also note for listeners that part of the actual Old Dog dossier is a giant interview I did with Declan. So if you're interested in my interviews, you should definitely check out this project. But I did want to ask, as we record this, you're about 2/3 of the way through your goal with about 2/3 of the campaign to go. What's your stress level?
It's not that high, to be honest. Just because I'm busy with other stuff. I'm just trying to chip away at promoting it every 2 days. I will say it feels like no one's even aware. Like, Twitter has mainly been like how I promote my stuff, and it's just the engagement is so low. But it's same with Instagram and all the other ones too. I'd much prefer to have hit its goal by now, but I don't know. I'd say it'd be grand. I think I was more worried with the Time for Time one because it was literally my first like attempt at it. I imagine people will just kind of sign up near the end. That seems to happen a lot, but I'm kind of too busy to stress about it too much. I did a lot of preparation, as you know. I was talking to you beforehand, and getting all the things ready and all that. So all I can really do is just keep pushing it. I mean, if it doesn't make it, then it doesn't make it, and I won't spend a lot of money. So that's fine. I think I might be personally upset if it doesn't. I might take it a bit personally, if I'm being honest. But sure, look, it'll be fine. I'm more worried about like it's not about that. It's about the book Old Dog. Like it's part of the reason to do the Kickstarter was like for an excuse to say Old Dog online again and again and again and again. I used to be of the mind of like, well, don't push things too much because people get sick of it and then they don't want to know about it. But the one thing I learned is that no matter how much you talk about something, the amount of people who actually are aware is low. Like there's no point like doing one tweet a day and going, well, that's it. That's my promotion done for the week. You just have to be relentlessly ignorant about it. So having a campaign that actively needs to be continuously updated means I always need to kind of be talking about it. And if I'm always talking about it, I'm always talking about the book. So whatever gets word for the book out there is worth it, So even if it doesn't make its goal, I think it will at least will have helped push the book itself, which is important.
That is one of the tricky things about our kind of algorithmic present, where you can post stuff, but you're not necessarily getting it in front of people, especially less on Twitter, still on Twitter because the For You stuff, but also like Instagram. God, I mean, I have no idea if you even use Facebook or other ones that use a more severe algorithm.
No, I dropped off Facebook. I never used it for promotion, but I just dropped off it anyway. And everybody, I've gotten lots of invitations for Blue Sky or whatever. But like my thing is, I've built an audience over Twitter for the last 10 years or so. Instagram to a lesser degree, but still, and I have a newsletter that I've been doing for years. That's it. I'm done. And I'm not saying you're suggesting I should, but like, man, like there has to be a limit.
There's only so much you can do.
Exactly, and of course, I'm sure I'd get more eyeballs if I went to other places. It's just, I also have to make the work. So I just need to create. There needs to be some boundaries on that kind of stuff, And it's a shame that the engagement is down across the board. But I think, but I also think that people's attention spans are stretched so thin. And it doesn't, and I see things on Instagram where there's people with like 100, like follow 100,000 or whatever, and like the likes are down, or there's people with less followers than me get more views, and like I don't know how it works. Do you ever watch Barry, the HBO show?
I love
There's a bit in the last season where someone's got a TV show out and they're like everything, the buzz is great, everyone's happy, and they're like, yeah, great, we're really happy, but the algorithm, is cancelled.
This is hilarious. So I actually talked about this very scene with Brian K. Vaughan when he came on the podcast last year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's very apt. It's very it's realistic, but it's also just it really speaks to it, where it's just like, if the algorithm doesn't bless you because you don't play the game perfectly right, you're in trouble. And that's really tricky. But let's focus on Old Dog Dossier. I did want to ask you,
Sorry.
What is your quick pitch to listeners? Why should they check out Old Dog Dossier, besides the fact I'm in it?
Well, I mean, clearly it will help if you've read the book, because there's lots of there's more kind of like investigative stuff with the story. Selling the original book, you're selling issue 1, but now that the book's finished, there's a very definite like narrative arc to things, and that's why I think now is a good time to do the dossier, because I can actually talk about what happens in the story rather than do all these kind of cagey interviews where you're like not trying to give everything away. You can just dig into into basically where the concept came from, showing like sketches of the logo that I drew. There's like it's just anything I drew coming up with the concept is in there, which isn't, it's not a huge amount, because I kind of designed a lot on the page, but then on the page you can see, I mean, I love seeing the difference between the pencils and like the layouts of that I do. I like Lightbox, so you can see those pencils and see how close they are to the layouts, or where they changed, or if something changed in the inks. And coloring is something that I've only really done in the last few years. So this is the first like full series that I've colored too. So there's lots of it's really from the very, very beginning to the end of how the book comes together. Like, and I don't know if I've seen a book that's done that. Not by, I mean, there's some great books out there. Elsa Chartier, sorry, did a really good one for November. But again, that's from the point of view of an artist, not the writer and artist and colorist. I think I may be the first to do this across the whole creative stages. So if you're interested in the book, there's so much more to be found about it. If you're not interested, if you haven't read the book, I mean, I wouldn't assume anybody who hasn't read the book would get the dossier. But if you, from a creative point of view, if you're interested in how something comes together, I don't think you can get a better like dossier for how a project comes from inception to actually becoming a finished thing. I'm not sure, but I think it might be like the first one to really, really get in like that. So if you're interested in the creative process at all, like, look, I'm interested in lots of creative processes that I've no interest in actually doing. So even on that front, if you're just interested in learning about the creative process behind comics, I think it'll be a really good buy.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think that it's very useful for creators who haven't done this sort of thing and want to get a realistic look at where this starts, how long it goes, what goes into it, everything like that. It's actually kind of making me think of some things we should have included in the interview now. But anyways, what are you going to say?
Well, also, like, not just like it's not just the technical stuff. Like, it's not like the rule the pages needs to be. It's not a technical manual in any way.
Right.
I think like with I love Cliff Chiang. I love his work, and I'd love to watch a video of him inking. But like, I also like to know like what he was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Like what was his approach? What was he trying to do and not trying to do? Like, I find that stuff, more like what is the voice behind the work rather than just the like technical process behind it. Like, and that's why I asked you to interview, because like you always ask me whenever we've done interviews, you always ask something that hadn't really thought about, and I actually need to think of an answer. That stuff needs to be teased out of a person rather than somebody like just pontificating. I mean, I can pontificate with the best of them, don't get me wrong, but I just don't know if anybody wants to read that.
You mentioned how part of the value is the repetition of just saying Old Dog when your first volume for the first trade, Redact 1 for Old Dog, is coming out, when it's in the ordering process, is valuable. But I have to ask, like, is it weird trying to pitch this at the same time as you're pitching that, or do you just think the repetition is what matters most of all?
Yeah, it is. Like, I mean, what I really, really want to do is sell the book, because that is the work, as in the trade Redact 1. That is what I want to sell, because I am a storyteller. I realize how wanky I say saying that, but it's true. And that's what I want to sell. The dossier is, I mean, effectively, it's a bit of an ego stroke. Let's be real, That is, it's ancillary to the actual creative work. I want the work to sell. So trying to sell a thing that isn't the thing, but is related to the thing, my concern was that it would undercut selling the book. But I don't think I think I talked to a few people about it, and I don't think that's the case. I think the repetition is really what helps, because there's only so many time I can share blurbs. There's only so many time I can share Amazon links or what retailers have book plates, and again, there's repetition in that, but I think the more various the repetition, the more likely you're going to catch somebody in a fresh angle that maybe they didn't see, rather than repeatedly seeing the same press, bit of press over and over and over again. The press promotion changes and evolves as the campaign goes. So I think it's a good thing. It does mean you're more efforts pushing that, but I think it's a good way of kind of integrating two levels of promotion where I'm getting to kill two birds with one stone, rather than like trying to chase two different birds at two different times. That makes sense.
And every time you link somebody to the Kickstarter, it also talks about the fact that there's a new trade coming. So it's like, one place is a promotional website in a way.
Yeah, like I don't think anyone's going to go like, I don't think anyone's going to go, the Old Dog dossier, I'm going to get that. Screw the book though.
Hey,
maybe there are.
You never know. I do think it's interesting how, like, we started this talking about the different roles and all the different hats you have. And this all underlines how much the work of a person who operates in the creator-owned space, really just the comic space in general, isn't just drawing or isn't just writing. It's also, you're a comics marketer. You're also a person who's an organizer. You have to get all these things together. And it's interesting how, like, you don't really think about that. Like, I think when people envision somebody who does your job, they just imagine somebody drawing at a board. But I don't know. I'm sure you spent a lot of your time emailing people that you wouldn't have expected doing back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, emails, I hate them, but they have to be done, because you just can't take for granted people know what the hell you're talking about. When a new book comes out, I like email a whole load of retailers. I don't know if any of them read it, but it has to be done. The amount of time, like all the graphics for this campaign, like I spent like a few days putting it all together and getting everything done. Like, so much of the work is not drawing. I wish I could spend more time drawing and writing and not pushing the stuff. But it's necessary. It's one thing when I went to art college, and as interesting or whatever experience I had there, I really wish there was some kind of business course. It's one thing I didn't really think it was something I would have to deal with, is knowing how to just push things and organize things. Like, I'm a very disorganized person, but I spoke to my sister yesterday, and she's like, "Yeah, you're really, really good with all the work stuff, but your life stuff is all over the place." I'm like, "Yeah, pretty much." Everything falls to the side, but by God, it seems like I've got things together. Like every day I'll try to make sure I push some. But also, it's tough too, because Old Dog's got the focus now. But Time for Time Volume 4 came out recently, and it's tough to. You got to figure out the best thing to be promoting at the right time. And it is all on you at the end of the day. Like, nobody else is doing it for you, and you can't expect people. Yeah, you just can't expect people to magically know what's happening. Especially when there's so much stuff out there now. There's so much competition for your attention.
Not just in comics either.
No, not just in comics. Like in everything. But comics is on the lowest tier of that. As in what will get attention. Video games or films and all that is always going to get more. But sorry, I don't mean to come across like I'm just mopey, but
you're not.
In a perfect world, I would have a team to do all this stuff, and I could just concentrate. But also, I know that I'm fucking obsessive with this stuff too. So I'd also want to I'd want to be involved to some degree. So maybe it's just better I do it myself rather than having somebody else do it and waste their time.
And now, a quick word from one of our sponsors. Do you wish that buying and reading digital comics was even easier? Well, I have good news. Omnibus is here for you. Omnibus is a modern digital comic book store and reader app carrying your favorite single issues, volumes, and omnibuses, all day and date. They're pay per book, just like your LCS, but digital, so you're already used to the experience. Their focus is on building an excellent customer shopping and reading experience and using novel discovery features to help fans find their next new favorite book. They feature top-tier content and already have many of the top publishers in comics today on board. Want to find the right digital comic shop for you? Download Omnibus today on the Apple App Store to do just that. And now, back to the show. It is interesting, though. You wrote about the... Oh, God. Actually, you didn't write about this. This was in your Kickstarter comments for the Time Before Time one. This is how big of a wonk I am. I was looking through your Kickstarter comments for a Time Before Time.
You're probably doing a better job reading them than I am.
Well, you responded. Somebody commented on it about how the shipping costs were higher for Old Dog Dossier than Time Before Time. And that's one of the things you have to do that people don't think about either is just like trying to manage a constantly changing environment where shipping costs internationally, locally, everything are just like skyrocketing. And like, how do you make something worthwhile when you have to charge like 25 euro for shipping? And part of it's the book's bigger. Part of it's the environment has changed. It's more than just emailing. It's like you have to figure these things out ahead of time so you don't take a loss when you actually have to fulfill this project.
Yeah, I mean, the risk for me is if it doesn't hit its goal, I will have wasted a lot of time and some money with getting stuff together, but like mainly time. Like you have to do due diligence. I packed up, a book of the same length with and another version with like more material in there because there would be extras and stuff that we posted. I went to the post office and I got, they sent me all the prices. I'm like, okay, that's a bollocks, but you know what, man, I'm used to having to do with it. If I'm getting anything from the States, like anything I get from Kickstarter, it's always more expensive because it's coming from the States. So I eat that cost all the time. Now, I could have gone through another company that would do fulfillment, but I felt with it being a process book, you want it from the artist more than a secondhand company. And you want it signed, like it's something that should feel more like literally from the artist's hand, which is why like I'm sure some people aren't getting it because of the cost, but like it's not me, it's everyone,
I had the same thing with Sketchbook, man. I mean, Sketchbook is just like,
oh, of course. Yeah, of course, yeah.
I feel horrible trying to tell people that it's like, I don't know, like somebody in Australia ended up getting it and it's like $35 to like ship it to Australia, US dollars. And like, that's just crazy. But I mean, like most people understand that I am not in charge of USPS postal rates and that's just the nature of things. But I did want to bring up, you brought up Time Before Time. And that's an interesting book to think about through the prism of Old Dog because it's another Image series, which you're doing with co-writer Rory McConville, artists Jeff O, Jorge Coelho, Joe Palmer, and others, colorist Chris O'Halloran, and letterer Hassan Otsman El How. It's wrapping up soon with its 29th issue, although newly ascendant is Time Before Time orders up with issue 27.
Well, you really do read the newsletter. Like I put that out like an hour ago.
Oh, come on, man. We're doing a podcast. I got to do my work. But anyways, this time travel crime story has been a rarity in this day and age in that it is a graybeard of 20 plus issues.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I do think it's really interesting, though. So I don't know if you've been paying attention to my notes about it when I write about it, but I think that it has only gotten progressively better. And I think its longevity has allowed it to become the best book it possibly could be. And it's regularly one of my favorite reads each month it's released. I am curious about that longevity from your perspective. Do you think it lasting this long has allowed you and the rest of the team to dig further to help it become its best possible book? Or is it more like its length has allowed you to kind of pay off plans that have been set since the beginning?
I'd say the latter. I mean, that was always the goal. Originally, when we were doing the book, we didn't know if we'd get past 5 issues. Like we just didn't. Issue 1 came out. I think Eric said, I can't remember exactly now, but
Eric Stevenson from Image.
Yeah, sorry, of course. We knew what we would do if we got to wrap it up. Not exactly, but a rough idea, and we knew that the concept had enough like depth to really play with stuff. That to wrap it up and for it to be a 5-issue miniseries would have been a real shame because there's way more to dig into. As the book was relatively stable sales wise, it was always going down, but like not too dramatically. We'll put it that way. The attrition was slight, so we were able to kind of see enough room to go a certain distance, and I think that's why we were able to like make some choices that were very upsetting and like just take the characters through those paces rather than it just be a cool sci-fi book. The reason I approached Rory about doing something together was I wanted to co-write something, but I also wanted to try. The goal was to do a long form comic because everything I had done. So Injection was different, but everything I'd written was short, graphic novel or miniseries or something like that. And my hope was we could do something longer. And I'm really, really glad we got to do it. I would say by the time the book ends, it wouldn't be profitable to go any further. But we're just about, I'd say the best way to describe it is like, we're just touching down before we reach the end of the runway, if that makes sense, But the plan was to land and we were getting to land. So I'm perfectly content with that. Like, the book could have gone on longer if it was hugely, like if it was a smash hit. We keep writing it because there is still stuff we could have dug into more. But I'm glad that we got to really kind of dig into a lot of the emotional stuff that we wanted to and do some kind of cool concepts rather than it be like, oh, it would have been cool to do that, so I'm satisfied that we're getting to stick the landing, but it's been tough, man. Like just keeping it going, making sure everyone's. I mean, anybody doing creator-owned comics will know this. Like making sure everyone's paid, kind of trying to take the money that comes in and put it back to the people getting the book done, and hopefully trying to be profitable in the long run. Because that's it. It's the hope is that the trades will sell over time and we'll make everything back. But that was something me and Rory just kind of decided that we're like, it's worth the risk to do the book that we were kind of hoping to do,
It's kind of interesting. I'm not saying that this is the reason why you do it, but I guess that's one of the benefits of like you writing Alien or you taking on other, like a bunch of covers and stuff like that, or Rory writing Spawn. Having those projects as kind of like stable foundations that might allow you to take this longer than you would otherwise.
If Rory, I mean, not to speak for Rory, but I think it's fairly safe to say if Rory wasn't like getting paid to write Spawn, and I wasn't getting paid or getting advanced in Old Dog or getting paid to do covers and whatnot, like then we wouldn't be able to. That money, so that has helped fund Old Dog in the short term.
Time Before Time.
Sorry, Time Before Time. Yes, thankfully the work for hire stuff funds the creator-owned stuff, in the hope that the creator-owned stuff will pay off in the long run.
Does it feel weird that it's gone as long as it has?
Very weird. Like I'm still amazed. Like to write the number and it's 20 something. Like we'd be one issue shy of 30. Like that's the longest run I'll have done on any book.
That might be the longest run you do on any book ever.
It might be, yeah. Unless I get like, it's possible I could go that long with Old Dog over a long stretch of time. I would it would take a long time to get that far. I would say this: if Time Before Time came out now, I don't think we'd have gotten past issue 5. Just the way the market is right now. I think we came out right after the COVID shutdown, like not too long afterwards, where people were taking chances on books more than they were now.
Yeah.
So with the attrition that comes into the sales on a book, we were able to survive like this. But if we launched now, I don't think we'd have gotten. It's not a dig on the book, the quality of the book. I think just timing matters. Timing really does matter, and you've no idea when a good or a bad time is really going to be for a book to come out. So I'm delighted we got to. It'll be 29. Will be the last one, and I can't believe we got that. I just can't believe it.
Timing really matters is definitely a theme for Time Before Time in general, but also for the comic itself. Yeah, it is really interesting to think about that. I think you're right. I say this with respect, of course. I don't think you would have gotten past 5 in this current environment because it's tough for anybody to get past 5 in this current environment.
I wouldn't launch an ongoing book now. Like I don't think the market's going to support it right now. Hopefully that will change, but it's different if it's a Marvel book because people at least know what it is. But like creator owned, you're selling the idea of something before somebody gets to read it, and then when they read it, they'll decide if they will or will not continue to support it. Like there's just so much variables there that it's not in our favor right now.
It's scary.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not just this environment. I mean, just like the idea in general, even in a good time, because it's like you're making a bet that you're going to get to the end of a very long road based off of basically the whims of people on one issue, effectively.
Yeah, well, often the question is like, oh, is this going to be ongoing? It's like, you tell me, buddy.
Well, I think Tom Brevoort put it recently about that Gods series that's coming out from Marvel in his newsletter. He said something like, Gods isn't ongoing depending on sales.
Wow. I mean, that's pretty honest of him to say that.
It's not a direct quote, but
sure.
It's something similar to that, because it's like, I think he's trying to insinuate that like it's not like a lot of times people are not making a choice to like, I only want to do 4 issues for this. It's like sometimes that's just what the market allows.
Sure. Well, but even like, I'm a little conflicted even saying all this stuff because, the argument is like, oh, we should always be talking things up, big it up. Don't be negative, yada, yada, yada. And I'm not being negative. If somebody asks me a question, I tend to want to answer it honestly, and explain sometimes how things work. But that was always the thing, is like, we were asked this Time Before Time ongoing. Our goal was for it to be ongoing, but I don't want to say it's an ongoing and then have it cancelled at 5 issues, because then it seems like I wasn't being genuine, but you do want to make promises you can't keep. And of course, like, you can't be going like, well, you need to buy all the issues in order to support the thing, because that's how it works. Like, people should be able to read the books the way they want. If they want to wait for the trade or they want to read digitally, but I'll be honest, it's just, if you want a book, if you really do want to support a book, buying the single issues is the best way to do it, because that's how the book, that's that's the life support for a book before any, like, people are asking about doing collections of Time Before Time and whatnot, and like, unless the book does way better, no, I'd love to do a collection, like
You mean like a
the
hardcover?
artist in me, yeah, like a hardcover and a big collection of the whole thing down the line. Like, I mean, I don't think it would be remotely feasible unless over time the books do better. And that's why it's weird that one issue sold better recently. Like, I don't know, is that because people have read all the other volumes and they're trying it out now? I haven't a clue.
It's because I'm talking it up. You're welcome.
And, well, I will thank you for that, because not many, not to sound like a dick, but like, nobody talks about the book. I don't see it mentioned very few places. I think comiccon.com and a couple of other small places are really good about, and they'll still review issues, like current issues, which is, I'm really impressed with, because I don't see anybody, I see very few places doing it.
I know this is terrible, but at the same time, it's true. It's like, in that very specific way, longevity is your enemy, because you are like, if you're writing about a book that's 20 plus issues in, it better be something a lot of people are reading. Otherwise, the potential audience for said review is not going to be there. And so you have to like do a cost benefit analysis as a site to some degree. I'm not saying that that's like the arithmetic that's going into every site. Some people are just really passionate about it.
True, yeah, and I'm very grateful for those who like are still reviewing it every issue. Like issue 26, is that, no, 20, 26, 27? I can't even keep track of the bloody book anymore.
Declan. You lost some time.
Yeah, I am, yeah. But but then people are always saying that they want ongoing books, and then when the people that do manage, I'm not speaking just for myself here, I think in general, the rewards aren't really there for, let's say, mid-tier books, like, it's not Saga, it's not Walking Dead, but you're not going to get any more Sagas or Walking Deads, because those books aren't smash hits because the first issues did well. They're smash hits because people got behind the trades and they bought all the collections, and like and they bought the issues, but you could criticize Image for not doing more of those books, but like, it's not down to Image, it's down to the creators, and the incentives aren't really there, because it's going to require a lot of money up front to try and make the book. And that's if it does well enough to keep going. It's an uphill struggle. That's why me and Rory were able to do it between us. I think the financial cost would have been too much if it was like just me. But because me and Rory basically kind of took the reins with it and said, we're just going to get this to the end, we've been able to. But for anybody coming up means spending a lot of money on something that you don't know is going to go. Like, that's really tough for newer creators, man. Like, people ask how you break into comics, and I say just make comics. But like, if you want to write comics, then you also need to maybe have a day job where you can save some money so you can pay people for a year.
Yeah.
Can you save 10, 15 grand ahead of time?
Not to change the subject too much, but I do think one thing that's been interesting about Time Before Time is it's been, if not completely, pretty close to monthly, right?
Yeah, I think we did a skip month accidentally when the first trade came out. Just didn't like, an email didn't get sent or read or something like that. But the plan was for always, we would do so between arcs there's a one shot, self-contained story, and I think originally the plan was for that to come out the same month as the trade, because then you could just read that issue, and if you're into it you could pick up the trade. I think that was a rough idea, but then in the end I think we ended up having like a skip month, maybe 2 or 3 skip months, just for whatever schedule reason. But I would say it was pretty much monthly, though.
The recent one with Merv and the woman who lost her family was exceptional.
Thanks, man. No, that was no. I think I don't want to say my favorite, because there's been so many good ones. Well, I would put this: it's better than the one, the first one I drew, and the last one Will Morris drew it, and it's way better than mine. Like, he's such a good artist. Like, and I think that's what I've always liked about the book. Because me and Rory, we got together to write a sci-fi book, and then we ended up realizing we were really writing a crime book, which is what we much preferred. And I think that the thing we've said back and forth a lot of time is like twisting the knife, like really hurting the characters over time. And like, I don't say it's bleak, but I like that I get to exercise a certain level of nihilism, or just breaking hearts. Like I want to make comics that like upset you in an emotional way, like that change your state of emotion, which sounds ridiculously pretentious, because it is, but moving people is why you tell stories. And that's one thing I'm really glad about that series, is I feel like we've really got to do that like multiple times.
I was gonna say, I don't think anybody got into art so they can inspire indifference in people. It'd be a really weird artist.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah. I did want to ask though, I mean, you brought up the art. Joe Palmer, the original artist of the series, is returning for the series conclusion. What made that the right answer? Because I thought I was very surprised by that, especially with, I mean, not to take away from Joe, but there's like My favorite stretch has largely been like Eric Zawadzki and like Jorge Coelho and things, and Will Morris's issue and stuff like that. It's been really interesting to see it kind of take hold in the second half when it's been more a rotating cast of character or artists on there.
Yeah, no, I mean, everybody doing the main. So like Eric and Ron Salas did shorter.
Oh, that two-parter, that was really good.
Yeah, yeah. But again, that was the cool thing about doing an ongoing book. Like I had suggested the structure that we do like 5 issue arcs that would be trades, and then we would do single issues in between. I think me and Roy were talking. It was just like it would be cool just to do like a 2-part story. It doesn't have to be, as long as we can kind of bring them out in trades, it's fine. So like let's do a 2 issue and a 3 issue story. And yeah, we were to get Ron and Eric, and then the next one we had Jorge. My inclination was that we would have Jeffo do the last arc, but I think when Joe left to work on his own project, I think me and Rory had said like it would be great to get Joe back for the last one. It was also a specific like this. The last issue, I would say issue 26 kind of wraps up a lot of the broader plot stuff. And I would say the last issue, you would appreciate this, was Why the Last Man came up.
Mm.
And I know you're a big fan of that last issue, and that was kind of the inspiration for this last issue. And as a result, having Jeff draw it would have it wouldn't have been connected to the plot stuff of that last arc. Like the last issue was kind of its own kind of bookmark on it, and it felt more poignant to have like the creator of the book, do that.
That makes sense.
And it's interesting. Joe's work is developed. Like if you trade 1, the second trade of Time for Time, Joe's work kind of like metamorphized a little, and now in the last issue, it's actually metamorphized even more. Like to the point where I'm like, whoa, these pages look so different.
I mean, he's been off the book for like 19, 20 months. I mean, he's probably went through a lot since then. It's because it's going from 11 to 29.
Yeah, no, it's a big gap. But I mean, I don't like. Well, one, I love seeing an artist evolve anyway. So I just personally love that stuff. It'll be interesting, and like it's definitely a cheery, happy issue. No, just kidding. No, it should be emotionally, cathartic, and I don't know. It just felt right for Joe to wrap it up. He started it. He's the co-creator, and we just wanted to make sure he was available to do it. So, and once he was able to confirm that he would, we kind of wrote it so that last issue is his, and the previous issues kind of take care of that bigger story that's been happening over the last couple of years.
And now, a quick word from one of our sponsors. School is back in session, and so are the amazing campaigns running on Zoop. Right now, you can support the We Belong anthology from Stack Deck Press, August Purgatory Book 1 from Benjamin Morse, Pork Chop Robot Killer from Tony Gregori, as well as the latest from Paul Allore and Juan Romero, Barber Psychic. Upcoming campaigns include a new Dracula book from the direct lineage of Bram Stoker, and crowdfunding for the first time ever, the legendary Howard Chaykin. It takes less than 30 seconds to sign up for Zoop, and the e-commerce style checkout is easy and intuitive. Add multiple rewards and add-ons into your cart, provide some info during checkout, and you're done. No confusing additional steps in finalizing your pledge, and no post-campaign surveys. And of course, every creator appreciates your support. For creators looking to crowdfund your project, Zoop is currently open for submissions. Email them at hello@wearezoop.com to start a campaign. And now, back to the show. I just want to say, the last thing I'm going to say about Time Before Time is there was a certain character death where I was like, I don't think this character's dead. And you're just like, David, he's dead. What are you talking about? Who's not dead? The character I was talking about.
Yeah.
That's right. I knew it.
Yeah. What else was it going to say?
I know. It's like, do you want to spoil your own book? But I did think it was funny. Okay. To close, I just want to talk about Alien real quick. It's your book at Marvel with artist Andrea Brocardo, with your first volume going 5 issues before relaunching this November with a new #1. Were you an Alien person before this?
Absolutely not.
No, really?
Nope. No. A girlfriend showed me Alien when I was in my late 20s, as well as my friend Stephen Mooney showed me Aliens around the same time. I was too scared, man. I was a real fraidy cat when I was a kid. Everyone my generation was a huge Alien fan, but I was just way too much of a scaredy cat. So I was like, nope, too scared. But when so it was only like, what was it, 15 years ago, I actually watched the films, but I thought they were savage. Sorry, that's not true. I saw the Alien, what's the fourth one?
Alien Resurrection.
Yeah, Resurrection. I saw that in the cinema when it came out.
What a weird one to see in the theaters.
Yeah, I was very confused. I don't know what was going on. But so that was technically, I did see it as, when I think I was a teenager by then, so I'd mustered up a little bit of courage, but clearly not enough courage to go back and watch the first ones. But no, I think they're fantastic drama, horror, sci-fi. Like, it's weird. I never would have like said that's the book for me, but when I was offered it, I'm like, yeah, I could totally see my sensibilities working in this, and it has proven to be the point. Like, I really like writing the book, I have to say. It just ticks a lot of boxes for me, and also kind of gives me a bit of room to write in ways I haven't before, like knowing that I have some issues means I concede some things, and kind of like things that you can't do in a 5 issue like miniseries full stop, that you never return to. So the new arc will be affected by the previous arc, though, as well as the annual that's coming out in October, that Danny Earls is drawing. That has a Daniel Warren Johnson cover I just saw like 2 days ago. Bloody hell. I'm glad I didn't see that before I drew my cover, because I would really feel like crap.
You were just retired from art.
Pretty much. Yeah, because I knew he was going to do one. I'm like, oh. But it's been a great place to just tell. I mean, I think if you read Old Dog and you read Alien, I'm not saying it's the same book or anything, but I think it has a similar voice. I like writing the characters. I like, once I figured out how to use the aliens, then that opened up all the doors for everything else. So it was finding my take at the beginning was the hardest thing, and after that, it's just been fun. And Sarah, the editor, has been brilliant. I kind of threw in some things last minute that was more work to kind of land, and she was a great help with that. And Andrea, like, he's such an Alien fan. Like, he's drawing all these little kind of Easter eggs in there from the Alien like franchise that I'm like, I didn't even realize. Like, he's so, like, he's all the models, he's all the action figures. Like, he's a pure, like, he's covered any holes that I might have had. But like, what I like about the, like, I'm not too worried about like all the internal kind of canon. Like, I want that to be accurate, but that's why it's on an ice planet. That's why it's somewhere else. I like that there's a big room to tell kind of like terrifying drama stories.
So I am a very big fan of the franchise. Very big fan.
So probably like when I said no, you're like, how dare. When I told Stephen Mooney I got the job, he said, you don't deserve it, straight up to my face.
I feel like I have seen Mooney say that to your face before, but
he's just said that about anything.
Just randomly. It's like, here's a beer, you don't deserve it.
Yeah.
But I do think it's interesting because as a franchise, it's a really interesting one. When you think about the first 4 movies, I have no idea if you know much about their history, but like the first one, Ridley Scott. Mm-hmm. Second one, James Cameron. Third one, David Fincher. Fourth one, Jean-Pierre Jeunet. And then you have, let's not even talk about the AVP movies. And then it comes back and it's back to Ridley Scott. But the interesting thing I think about it is, like, when you look at the main core movies, you're talking about 4 different people coming in from varying different perspectives and putting their imprint on it. And so with probably varying degrees of knowledge, I'm sure that like David Fincher was well aware of what happened in the first 2 movies and was told all about the story behind this stuff. So it's not like he was going in blind, just like you weren't. But I do think that there is an advantage to being a storyteller who's not so married to like, I have to do my version of Aliens. You just do your version of like you don't want to just do a marine battling xenomorphs thing. You're doing your own version of this type of story.
Keep going, writing notes.
I just think it's really interesting because it's like, it is a legacy of people just bringing their own take to this franchise. Sometimes it is terrible. Sometimes it's really good. And so it's always interesting though. Okay, AVP is not interesting. I don't count that though.
Yeah, I remember I saw that like drunk one time, and it was still didn't like it. I have come into this as regards this is what is my version of this, but not so much like the Declan and Shalvey take on it, but just looking at the whatever versions, whether you like them or don't like them, but trying to just kind of boil them down into the purest, like, what is an Alien film, what is not, what works, what doesn't work, what would readers like to see? Well, readers want to see all the stuff that they know and love, but you also can't just be like navel gazing and looking backwards. So it was trying to find a balance between, like, I don't want to say like pandering to fans, but like, giving enough familiar stuff and still going to new places while understanding why the franchise is a success. And once I figured that out, really it was all fine after that. It was just that was the hardest thing, just trying to nail down what is and isn't, what needs to be in a story in order for it to be an Alien story as opposed to just like a sci-fi story, and figuring out what you can bend and what you shouldn't break.
I do think, just throwing this out there, there is a history of excellent basketball scenes. So if you can ever work that in, there's David the
right.
android making the amazing bicycle hook shot in Prometheus.
That's true, actually. Yeah, yeah.
The other one is in Alien Resurrection, your favorite, the one you saw in theaters,
Ripley. Yeah,
which
yeah.
she actually made. I do want to note.
I know. Yeah, that's bonkers, bonkers. But no, I love working on them. Also, like, kind of as tying back to what we were saying about creator-owned stuff was what I like about writing this book is like being the I think I said in an interview with you recently, like the tip of the spear on the project, like talking to the editor about like who the artist is going to be and who might do variant covers or things like that. Like, it's just been a really, really fun creative outlet, and I've really, really enjoyed it. I couldn't have seen it coming, but I couldn't have thought of a better fit, especially for me to write something in Marvel. Like, I love superheroes and everything, but I just would never have thought I'd be offered this. But then when it came to my lap, I'm like, this actually clicks so well with my sensibilities. So
it really does.
Yeah, no, I'm really loving it.
I'm actually kind of surprised you're not a fan of the franchise. I know Sarah is, though. Sarah Brunstad, the editor on it.
It's big time. Well, don't be wrong. Like, I'm saying I'm not a fan of the franchise, as in I did not grow up loving it the way that most of the people do. Like, I definitely like the franchise. There's parts what I don't like and I do like, but I just don't want to make out like there from the start. I just can't lie about it. Like, I came to it as an adult, appreciating it rather than seeing it as a kid and it's completely messing up my entire psyche, like everybody else my age.
That's right. That's exactly what happened to me. My psyche's so jacked up by it. I'd be, as Xenomorphs are number one on my scariest monster list. Okay, to close, I did want to ask, we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but I do think it's interesting. We're in this position where your original projects, your creator-owned projects are in an environment where it's tricky. It's complicated. It's a tough time to do those sort of things. But you also have these projects like Alien and Crypt of Shadows, where you have these projects where you can take on these things. Do you think that one of the things you're really looking to do right now is kind of balance that risk reward, where you have a balance of writing stable earners like Big Two books that support the big swings you're taking on your own passion projects like Old Dog? Like, does that feel like the right playbook for you right now, or are you trying to find what that answer looks like?
No, that's a good question. But because like I haven't actually talked about Old Dog much, but like doing all these different projects is great. I love working on Time for Time and Alien and all that. But Old Dog is the one thing, like working with Time for Time is working with a team. I really like that. And I really like working with a team on Alien. Old Dog is the book where I don't have to do that. Not have to, but I don't do that. And I can have I want to be making singular work, for lack of a better phrase. And Old Dog is where I'm getting to do that singular work. And I think that is keeping me the most creatively focused and satisfied. But at least I'm not going crazy on my own all the time because I get to kind of step to the side and work with all these like really interesting creators and talented people, and I get to be a project manager and work with other people. So I really I want to make sure I'm not doing just one or just the other. I think I'd go mad if I was only working on projects that I'm not getting to do my own. And if I was only doing my own, I think I'd go mad too. So I think I'm in a space where I'm really satisfied, and I would like to keep that going. Be it like, if it's not Alien, then taking on another book, another franchise, whatever the word you want to use, while getting to put everything I have into another project. So I want to be writing and drawing and coloring something, but I want to be writing for other artists. And maybe I would be writing and drawing something as a work for hire, and I would be writing something creator owned. I think as long as I'm focusing on one thing, I'm focusing on one thing and having those other things, I'm in a really nice place where I think I just get to be, I feel creatively rewarded in various ways. And I think this is a nice place. I'd like to keep this going if I could.
It's kind of like you got one foot on each side. It's like one for you, one for them, but simultaneously.
Yeah, but I also get to have like say Alien. Like I said, I'm not drawing the scripts. I have a take. Mm-hmm. I'm developing a project. I like that. I don't, even though I'm a hired hand, I feel like I'm getting to have a certain kind of authorial take on that franchise, which is really, really cool opportunity. You don't always get to do that being the artist. You're kind of, sometimes you can be, but you don't always get to be. And I like that side of a book. I like, coming up with the look of it, the feel of it, especially with Alien. Like, I really wanted it. I didn't want it to look like the previous books. I wanted to have a completely different aesthetic. And Sarah was really cool to work with me on that, it's not an accident that this means that Thaw looks totally different to the other ones. But I like that back and forth, and I like getting to do that. At the same time, I like doing something where I don't have the same not, I don't want to say pushback, but like I don't mind if 20th Century have a note on something, because I don't get those kind of notes on Old Dog. I'll have a back and forth with Heather, but in the end, it's my decision. On the other projects, I think it's good creatively to have something to kind of force against you sometimes, because then you have to kind of justify your decisions rather than just go, but that's what I want to do. Let me do the thing I want. So I feel having a foot in both kind of camps keeps me sharp in two ways. It feels like with the creator own, with the work for hire work, I have a certain take and an eye that I want to develop, and on the creator own stuff, I have the freedom to kind of do what I want without restrictions. So both kind of, I think, complement each other, and I'm lucky. Some people don't get those options. They're either only doing creator own work or they're only doing work for hire work and can get frustrated. I feel very fortunate I'm in a place where not only do I get to do both, but I think both complement each other nicely.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to compliment you nicely. You're doing a very good job with all this stuff right now, Declan.
But thanks, man.
As long as you do nice things in the end of Time Before Time, come on, give me a happy ending. What are you doing here? Actually, I don't really care. Give me whatever you guys end up doing. But anyways, I'm excited to see whatever is coming up for you. But thank you so much for coming on to talk about Old Dog Dossier, Time Before Time, Alien, and everything else. I appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, thanks very much. And just so I make sure I'm plugging it. Bye, Old Dog, Redact 1. Do that Simpsons adolescent voice. Bye, Old Dog, Redact 1. It's out 20th of September, and I've talked to Lisa about it on this podcast, but I am so proud of it and really happy with how it all came together. And I think it's the best thing I've done.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Off Panel with writer-artist Declan Shalvey. You can find him on social media at Declan Shalvey and his work in Old Dog, Time Before Time, and the currently being kickstarted Old Dog Dossier. Big thanks to Deanna Chapman for stepping in to edit this podcast. If it sounds better than usual, it's thanks to her. Love Off Panel, want to support it? Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts today and give the show a rating or review while you're at it, but 5 stars only. You can also support the show by backing on Patreon. Find the show at patreon.com/offpanel. And when you back it on there, you get early access to each week's podcast, as well as weekly content and more. Want even more? Subscribe to my subscription comic site Sketched at sketch.com for long-form articles, interviews, and the rest of the site's content. You can find Off Panel and Sketched on social media by following on Twitter and Instagram at SketchComic, or following me at @SliceFriedGold. Big thanks to all my existing patrons, including Kenny Myers, James McEwen, Andrew Lehman, Christina Merkler, Mike Cancel, Scott Place, Darcy Van Polges, Kevin Bides, Travis Schmeiser, Tom Evans, Natalie Mockery, Reed Beeman, Kelly Zudakonic, Max Wood, Jeremy Lambert, Brian Hull, Matteo Ciccati, Chris Del Rey, Nir Levy, Dennis Hoffman, Jason Hussa, Kieran Gillen, Jonathan Kent Uratam, Henry Johnson, Jingo Boren, James Tynan IV, Chris Langford, Jason Wood, Tom Peachy, Ben Damstead, Rom V, Nick Walker, Patrick Coyle, Isaac Oren, Scott Carpenter, Rent Narb Studios Comics, Capes and Tights Podcast, Klaus Van de Ven, Brian, Subman Industries, Jack Mulqueen, Kyle, Carl Kerschel, Robert Misell, Elza Chartier, Luke Nakashoji, Dr. Luke, Scott Hazelwood, Canadian by Proxy, Bradley Rader, Carl Choi, Brandon DePillis, Patrick Brower, Declan Shalvey, Dan Garino, Adam Freeman, Ben Wild, Brian Klein Q, Nick Bennett, Birdcage Comics Cafe, Susanna Polo, Reed Hinkley Barnes, Mario Tiambang, Andrew Carita, Matt Mahoney, Stefan Hall, Philip Myrick, Chris Bachala, Torin Grunbeck, Fuzz Bubbles, Christopher Todd, Transmitter Down, Waltz Comics and Books, Akil Wilson, Alex Dimitriopoulos, Terry Dodson, Wesley Giff, Sean Kirkham, Holy Anta, Brett A. Schmidt, Jason Goodmanson, Paul Reinwan, Vita Ayala, Akil, Philip Seavey, Al Ewing, Ryan Alcock, David Kelly, Nick Polito, Matthew Groom, Jason Massey, Adam Bogart, Matthew Taylor, Nick Patera, Jacob Sorelli, Ford Gilmore, Dave Baraldi, Nick Hall, Bjorn Basin, John Hendricks, Steve Anderson, Ian Maxwell, Cliff Chang, Carl McMahon, Scott McGovern, Nathan Fairbairn, Adam Highfield, Fiona Stables, Mark Abnett, Michael Shirley, Tom Barnett, Jim Demonakos, Norbert, Nick Lowe, James Kaplan, and Mission Comics and Art in San Francisco. You guys are all the best. A quick thanks to Wolfpack for letting me use their song Outro as the show's opening theme, and to Upright T-Rex Music, who wrote and performed Off Panel's outro and ad music just for the show. Check out their music on Spotify because it's completely delightful. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week for another episode.